Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time of day it is wherever you are located on the planet. I bought, as you know, if you've seen my other videos, a Nikon Z9 about a month ago, and I promised I'd come back and give you my initial thoughts. I did an unboxing, by the way, so that's in the video somewhere if you want to go and take a look at that. I promised I'd come back and give you my initial thoughts, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to caveat that firstly by saying this is a fabulous camera. You know, there are plenty of reviews out there. If you want a full review on the Z9, look at other people's reviews, Steve Perry, people like that. They've done great reviews. I'm not even going to attempt to jump into their shoes and do another review because it's pointless. But from a photographer and a wildlife photographer in particular, I'm going to give you my cons on the camera, things that I don't really like and things that I've changed since purchasing the camera. So let's get into it. This won't last long. Just my initial thoughts and my initial, not really irks and narks, but things that I think Nikon could probably do a little bit better with their next incarnation of the Z9. Firstly, and this is it, and you will notice that I've actually purchased a 180 to 600 Nikkor lens, they're calling these now. I'm not going to do a review on that either because there are enough of them out there. Go and take a look at them. For wildlife, this is great. I still prefer my f-glass, so I use the FTZ adapter with some of my like my f4 200 to 400 and my f4 600. I prefer those. They're much heavier than this though. This is hand holdable. This is probably, is it as good as my Nikon 200 to 500 5.6? Not yet, it's not, but I'm very new to this system, so I'm just trying to get used to it. So maybe I will come back and do a side by side. I think probably somebody's already done a 200 to 500 Nikon and a 180 to 600 review. But things I don't like. The first thing I didn't like was, if we look at the back of the camera, I didn't like the initial Nikon eyepiece. For me, the rubber was too flat against the viewfinder. Couldn't really get my eye up close enough against it without hurting my my eyelid and my eyebrow here. So I've replaced it with a much thicker rubber that sticks out more, also blocks out a lot more extraneous light. If you don't want it sticking out when you're not using the camera, it will actually fold in against the body. So I bought this. It's an aftermarket job. I think I got it on eBay. Not expensive, about £9 I think. And it's basically a DK but with a much bigger rubber on it. So, you know, if you're struggling with the eyepiece on your Z9, I suggest you change it. I'd change it anyway. The original Nikon one is poor. Now, while I'm talking about this, I've actually got everything I'm going to tell you on my computer over here. So excuse me if I keep looking to the left to pick up on my notes. So that was the first thing that I didn't like. The second thing, without looking at my notes, and I really hated this to be fair, was the very small top plate LCD finder. To me, it's ridiculously small. We didn't need the Z9 logo. You could have extended that LCD panel and made it probably as big as it is on the D500 or a D6. Why it's so small, I don't know. Obviously, if you're 22 years old, when you can afford a Z9, and fair play to you if you can, then obviously your eyesight's 20/20, and looking at small LCD images and pixels is not a problem for you. But I'm 60. It is a problem for me. I am a glasses wearer, and that LCD plate is just far too tiny for me. I would like to see it at least a third the size it is again. Again, just like the Nikon D500, I had no trouble reading that whatsoever. This one is slightly more problematic for me. Okay, so that's that. I mean, they're gripes, but they're not really gripes, if you know what I mean. I get by. And secondly, what else have we got on here? Oh, excuse me. Let me just scroll down. Yeah, and the next thing, I've watched lots of reviews on YouTube and everybody was saying that they love the shutter sounds. I don't. I actually hate them. I think they're all tacky, tinny and horrible. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, to me, it sounds like a scale extric when it's whizzing away at 120 frames a second. So to me, I'm in silent mode. I've turned them off, and I have just a little band in the viewfinder that flickers when I'm taking pictures to let me know that I am actually taking photographs. Couldn't get on with any of the sounds, and I think there are about 5 or 6 in the menu setting. You can change them, but none of them to me sounded like a real shutter. So I've just got rid of those, and I work completely silently. Yeah, didn't get on with them at all. I can't understand why people actually on YouTube say they love the shutter sounds. No, to me they're poop, rubbish. It's a gimmick, and you can do without them. Next on the don't like list. Yeah, the rear LCD. Believe it or not, and you can go and check this, in fact I'll put an image up on the screen, this LCD resolution is not as good as the LCD resolution on a Nikon D500, and I will put that image up for you now to prove it. So I don't like the LCD screen for that reason alone. Whether it's too, I mean, have I noticed a difference? I guess not, but when you're paying £4,700 for a camera body, I would expect that the rear LCD at least matched the resolution of a Nikon D500, which after all is not a professional camera, it's a semi-professional camera. So why we've actually gone down in value on the rear LCD on the Z9, I don't know, and I'm guessing that the Z8 is exactly the same. It will be a lower resolution screen than the D500. Yeah, VR is another strange one for me. With this lens, with the Nikon 180 to 600, VR hum is not an issue. I don't hear anything. I obviously know that VR is working because there's a little hand comes up in as an icon in the viewfinder, which lets me know that the VR is actually on and working. But when I put my f-glass on here, my 200 to 400 makes an audible hum. The lens does hum permanently. You can hear it. I don't know whether that's putting much of a drain on the battery or not. I've not noticed it has, but the noise is audible. When I put my 600 f4 on, which is also f-glass, there's hardly any noise at all from that. And if I put, in fact I can't put it on anymore because I sold my Nikon 200 to 500 to buy the 180 to 600, but when I put my Nikon 200 to 500 lens on this body via the FTZ adapter, that didn't make any noise either. But my 200 to 400 f4 definitely gives a permanent hum, which is audible. You don't even have to put your ear against the camera or the lens to hear it. Just standing behind the camera you can constantly hear the hum. I've checked on the internet. Apparently this is normal. There's nothing wrong with the lens, nothing wrong with the camera body, but the hum is there. It's not really a niggle, it's just something that I noticed immediately when I first heard it. I nearly crapped myself, to be honest, because I thought there was something wrong with the lens or the camera body, but apparently not. It is just a hum on certain lenses. So that's another bit of a niggle, but again, it's not a big niggle, it's just a small gripe. Yeah, battery life. Considering that a Nikon EN EL18D battery in this costs around £175 British, it doesn't last as long as some non-Nikon batteries that I used in my Nikon D500. Now, when I had my D500, in fact I owned two of them, and both of them had the MBD17 vertical grips attached, which took an EN EL18 battery. I used a couple of non-original Nikon batteries in there, and they lasted much longer than the genuine Nikon battery does in the Z9. Again, I haven't tested it properly. There are videos out there on YouTube where people have tested it. Go and watch those if you want their opinion. But in my opinion, this battery life is half as long as that of my D500 when using the MBD17 battery grip, and that was used with non-Nikon batteries. The only original Nikon battery I had in my D500 was the little ENEL15s that were in the body itself. The big batteries in the grip were ENEL18s, the same, or not quite the same, but nearly the same as that's in the Z9, and the batteries lasted much longer. I'm getting about 4 to 5 hours out of one of these batteries in the Z9. I could double that easily with my D500, and that was almost with it being switched on with an external monitor on it as well in constant use. So moving on to my next little gripe, which is apparently it is all over YouTube because I've seen this gripe before, but to save you going and finding it elsewhere, I will mention it. The compact flash express door is a pain in the arse to open. I mean, I don't know why they've made it such a difficult thing to do. You have to be a contestant on, if you remember the game show The Krypton Factor, to almost get this damn thing undone. It's almost impossible to do it single-handedly. I'm getting there slowly, but it is very, very difficult to undo. You have to push this tab button down and at the same time pull out, and it's not easy. Those of you who've got a Z9 will probably agree with that wholeheartedly. Why they've made it such a difficult door to open, God above only knows. So that's another little gripe thing I don't like about the Z9. My D500 door, no problems opening that. One-handed, one-fingered, not a problem. This is a real pain in the neck. And I've got to consult my sheet again, so just bear with me. We're getting towards the end of my gripes. See, there weren't that many, to be fair. Oh, yeah. Now, this may be because the camera's gone 8K. I'm not big on video, so I don't really know. But I've got HDMI leads now hanging around from my sale of my D500s. Two of them, because the D500 had a mini HDMI connector. And now, all of a sudden, Nikon have gone to a full-size HDMI connector for the Z9. Which has left me with HDMI leads that are basically no longer of any use to me or probably anybody else. Why we can't keep leads to be the same fitting all the while, I really don't know. But now you need, I'll reiterate that, you need a full-size male female HDMI lead. It's no longer a mini HDMI for the Nikon Z9, it's a full-size HDMI. So if you've got leads left over from your previous camera, I'm not quite sure what the D4s, 5s and 6s and D850s used, but I'm guessing it was probably a mini HDMI. Let me know in the comments below if I'm wrong, but the Nikon Z9 is a full-size HDMI cable, so I've had to go out and replace those, which again adds to a cost which I could, you could do without it. You've just spent like £4,700 on a body. I've just spent £1,800 on a lens. Chuck in a HDMI cable then, Nikon, if you're going to go down that road. Give us one rather than expect us to change and go and buy new ones all the while. I'd rather have a decent HDMI lead than a pathetic, crappy, poor plastic lens hood, which is a complete waste of time. It's only on there for show today. Don't normally have it on. I take it off and get rid of it. It's a waste of time. But that's another story. So I don't like the way they keep changing HDMI leads. It's like phone providers keep changing this lead, keep changing that lead. Just leave them alone. Again, a bit like what was wrong with CF cards or XQD cards. Why do we have to have CF Express? Again, is it just to make us part with our money, or are these cards really reading much faster than an XQD card can? I would doubt it, to be honest. Surely somebody could make an XQD card that's as quick as a CF Express card for a Nikon camera, Z8 or Z9. Again, gripe over. Well, a couple of things I will actually say as pros while I'm here, as an older photographer. One of the pros is that the diopter adjustment on the Z9 is excellent. When I'm out with the camera, I don't need to wear these glasses. My Nikon D500 would not adjust. In fact, I'd fully adjusted my diopter adjustment on my Nikon D500, and I had to buy a separate diopter adjuster to put on the back of the camera because I just ran out of internal adjustment on the body. This is not a problem. I think this is something like -5 to +6 or something really weird, but I can actually adjust this within my eyesight capabilities, no problem at all. So if you're long-sighted, short-sighted, getting old like I am, hopefully you won't need to buy an external diopter adjuster. And to be honest, don't think Nikon actually make one for the Z9 yet, because I had a look and couldn't find any. You can find a DK, is it 33, another rubber eyepiece, but you can't find any +1, +2, -1, -2 diopters for a Nikon Z9. They're not out there, so I'm assuming Nikon expect everybody's eyesight to fall within the internal diopter adjustment on the body itself, and let's hope they're right. But I've had no problems with diopter adjustment, and I don't need anything extra now. I'm dialed in perfectly well. Another niggle, this is a good niggle as well, when you're looking at the rear view screen or replaying your images that you've taken, if you want to delete one and you're right-handed like me and you come up here for the delete button, what happens is as your hand passes the viewfinder, it turns off the rear screen. So you go to delete an image and all of a sudden the rear screen goes blank. Only when you move your hand away again does it come back on. If you're left-handed, not a problem for you guys, because you can just reach up with your left hand and delete the image with the delete button up here. But if you're right-handed, every time your hand comes anywhere near the rear viewfinder, the EVF, it turns off the display. So that's a real ball ache, and I'm still not quite getting used to that yet. Whenever I'm reviewing images using the play button, if I want to delete one or move on to if I want to delete one and come up here, I lose the rear screen image until I move my hand out of the way, and then it comes back on again. So that's a bit of a pain in the arse as well. But again, it's only a basic niggle and a basic gripe. The one thing that is interesting, and I will note it down as a plus by the way on the camera, I've just noticed it on my notes here, there is a high-res zoom available on the Z9, regardless of lens. Even if you've got a 50mm 1.8 lens on there, high-res zoom is available in the menus. So although you're at your 50mm maximum or your 105mm maximum, once you hit the high-res zoom and turn it on in the menus, you can actually press the plus and minus buttons on the back of the camera, the magnifying buttons, and you can zoom in almost 100% plus on that image. So you can actually fine-tune your focus on there. I'm not sure whether you can use focus peaking whilst that's in place. Possibly you can, but it's a great feature because it allows you to zoom in wherever lens you've got, 50mm, 28mm, 35mm, 17mm, even an 8mm fisheye. You can zoom in using, and it's lossless quality as well. You don't lose any quality in the image when you zoom in. So you've got a high-res zoom in the menu on the Z9, which if you're a videographer, it could be invaluable, especially if you want to zoom in really close on, say, a nesting grey heron, which is just sat there on the nest. You can zoom in, you can get your critical point of focus, you can turn off the high-res zoom or back out from it. And if you haven't got a really long lens, it's very, very handy to know that your critical focus is in place. So that's it, folks. That's my basic review of the Nikon Z9 and the cons that I've found with it so far. And again, I'm going to add the caveat at the end. This is a fabulous camera. You know, there are so many features and functions on here that, as some people have said on YouTube, are we cheating now as photographers because some of these features are just so good. I think you're only cheating as a photographer if you don't know the basics of photography, like, you know, aperture, f-stop, shutter speeds and things like that. If you've come from film and you know about, and you've been through the DSLRs and moved into mirrorless, then obviously you're not cheating because you know how the camera should be set up anyway. But it's a difficult one to answer that. I mean, in many ways I feel like I'm a cheat now with a wildlife photographer, because this camera I know is going to nail so many images that my D500 would not have nailed. And I'm not one for spray and pray. To be honest, I'll probably not use this camera at 120 frames a second, which only gives me a JPEG image anyway. I prefer shooting in RAW. I'll probably stick around the 20 to 30 frame a second mark, but the capabilities are endless. You know, focus stacking. I'll put some focus stacking images up that I did. I don't do focus stacking. I'm not a sort of a macro man or a landscape man, but I did a couple just to see what it was like. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, the focus stacking is just so superb on this. The camera does all the work for you. Obviously, in your software, you need to have the software available to knit those photo stacks together to make one single flawlessly sharp image from front to back or from back to front. But it's available. The camera does everything for you. You're not having to sit there and adjust the focus every time you take a shot. You can just dial in the amount of shots you want, leave it on AF. The camera changes the AF every time it moves to a different point, and all you've got to do is put those images into Photoshop, Lightroom, whatever it is you use, and as long as it's got a focus stacking image capability in the software of your computer, no problem at all. So yeah, it's a great camera. This is not an intensive review, and it's not an intensive gripe either. The niggles I've made are just my initial thoughts and my initial gripes on this camera. Yeah, the top plate's too small for me. I need a much bigger one with my eyesight the way it is. The compact flash express door is far too difficult to open one-handed. When you're playing back your images, putting your hand across to the delete button to get rid of one turns off the rear screen, which is a pain in the neck because it just turns on the viewfinder. It thinks you've put your eye up to the viewfinder when you haven't. But they're basic little niggles really. They're little gripes, they're not big gripes. It's a great camera. Now, you can like this video, you can dislike it, I don't care. I don't do this for money. I do it to help out people who are thinking of buying a Nikon Z9, or just to help Nikon users in general, or people who are thinking of going from Canon to Nikon. These are just my thoughts. Other people have different thoughts, so I don't care. I'd rather you like the video, but if you don't, that's your choice. Anyway, stay well, have a nice day, stay tuned, subscribe if you like. Again, not bothered if you don't, but stay well. Bye for now.